Marine Expeditionary Force. Eighth Marine Regiment. Tenth Marine Regiment. Marine Special Operations Support Group. School of Infantry East.
This morning, as we gather at this joint daytime ceremony to observe the birthday of our Corps. For you are the solid rock on which we have stood for 200 who have donned the uniform to fight valiantly for freedom's cause. Lord, we stand in respect. Amen.
Fire detail.
Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. And strength to our motto, Semper Fidelis. It is fitting that we recall those Marines who have gone before us, who molded the tradition of honor and courage which we cherish now. As the pageant unfolds, note the changes in weapons and uniforms, and reflect on the unchanging esprit de corps that binds us to the Marines of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. November 10th, 1775. On that day, the Continental Congress resolved that 2 battalions of Marines would be raised. The new recruits were not long idle. Their first objective, New Providence Island in the Bahamas. The early morning reverberated as the warships of Commodore Hopkins shelled the fort and the British garrison. While the guns rumbled, Captain Nicholas and his 268 Marines stormed the beach. The redcoats spiked the guns and abandoned the fort. For the first time in American history, the Marines had landed and the situation The uniform for the 1775 Continental Enlisted Marine is worn by Private First Class David Kinderdine from Centerville, Ohio. November 10th, 1805. 600 searing miles of desert from Alexandria to Tripoli. Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon led a small party of Marines against fearful odds, routing the enemy when he turned their own cannons against them. In 1812, during the final conflict with England, Marines served well aboard ships of the fleet. The Battle of the Wasp and the British Frolic, the duel between the frigate United States and Her Majesty's ship the Macedonia, and the Battle of the Constitution and the Guerriere. The Marines were on the frigate Chesapeake and held the British at bay when Admiral Lawrence ordered, "Don't give up the ship." Meanwhile, Marines on land were not idle. They were at Sackett Harbor and stood with Andrew Jackson at New Orleans. The Marines at Bladensburg stopped 15 times their number in British regulars, and on November 10, 1814, Marines looked back, as we now look back, on many years of tasks well done. The War of 1812 service dress uniform is worn by Private Robert Seymour from Cincinnati, Ohio. November 10th, 1848, Mexico City. The first troops to enter the Citadel were United States Marines. Major Twiggs, second in command to General Scott, fell at the head of his troops at Chapultepec. Captain Terrett led the 20 surviving Marines through the gates of the city. Brigadier General Henderson inspired his Marines with esprit de corps, and a new banner was unfurled, emblazoned with the motto, "From Tripoli to the halls of Montezuma." From the dense jungles of Veracruz to the arid deserts of California, Marines carried the Corps' colors to victory. The Mexican War fatigue uniform is worn by Private Joshua Burks from Atlanta, Georgia. November 10th, 1861, A Nation Divided. Marines continued to share in the gallant deeds of the Navy. Aboard more than 100 ships, Marines manned the guns and rifles, which were largely responsible for the destruction of the Confederate fleet and the blockade of the South. At Harper's Ferry, Bull Run, Fort Fisher, Norfolk, and Pensacola, Marines continued to fight their country's battles. The Civil War fatigue dress is worn by Private First Class Rufus Byrd from St. Petersburg, Florida. November 10th, 1898. A New Era and the Spanish-American War. Marines were serving aboard the Maine in Havana Harbor. Marines were with Commodore Dewey at Manila Bay, and Huntington's battalion remained at Guantanamo. Marines like Sergeant John Quick and Private William Anthony fought as strangers to fear. The Philippines, Puerto Rico, Guam, Hawaii, Wake were all advanced naval bases, and Marines on the threshold of a new century had their work cut out for them. The Spanish-American War tropical uniform is worn by Private Jacob Ott from St. Charles, Illinois. November 10th, 1918, World War I. Across a wheat field and over German barbed wire, Marines had their baptism of fire at Bellawood and carried a new name, Devil Dogs. It had been rough and bloody through the mud and rain of elite German infantry. Men like General John A. Lejeune, Major Holland M. Smith, Private First Class James J. Kelly, and Corporal John A. Pruitt. The World War I winter service uniform is worn by Private Louis Fonseca from Tijuana, Mexico. November 10th, 1933, the Banana Wars. Following the First World War, peace prevailed in our armed forces, except for the Marines. Haiti, Nicaragua, and the Dominican Republic kept Marines fighting and dying in the Banana Wars. Marines like Chesty Puller left their legacy. It was in the Nicaraguan jungles that a new era dawned. It was then the first planned air support of ground troops occurred, and the Marine air-ground team concept was born. Jungle tactics were conceived and developed, and the Fleet Marine Force came into being. The Banana Wars 1936 uniform is worn by Private Christopher Cardona from Glen Rose, Texas. November 10th, 1942. The world is once again at war. World War II. For the first time in its history, the Marine Corps had to expand beyond a few regiments and brigades. By the end of the war, the Corps had expanded to 6 divisions, with a comparable number of air wings, as well as numerous other support and special units. The most famous of these were the Raiders and the Para-Marines. At Guadalcanal, the Marines launched the first American land offensive in the Pacific Theater. It was here that marked the first time the Japanese were stopped on land. The Japanese lost more than an island. They lost their legend of invincibility. Throughout its history, women had not played a role as part of the Corps. The only exception to this was for a short period of time during the First World War, when approximately 300 women were formed as an auxiliary. That would change in November 1942, when Commandant Thomas Holcomb would approve the formation of the United States Marine Corps Women's Reserve. By February 1943, women's service in the Marine Corps would begin at Hunter College, New York. By August, the first enlisted class of 722 women had completed training. Slow to be accepted by their male counterparts, the women would quickly prove their worth. Working under the motto, free and ready to fight, the Women's Reserve would become highly proficient in almost every job filled by male Marines. From instructor to mechanic, communication specialist to pilot, and much more, women Marines were able to replace thousands of men for service overseas. By the end of World War II, there were 18,460 women, both officer and enlisted, on active duty with the Marine Corps Women's Reserve. After the war, like a large percentage of the active Marines, the Women's Reserve was demobilized, but a small percentage would remain on active duty, until, in 1947, the Women's Reserve would be made part of the regular Marine Corps. The World War II HBT utility uniform is worn by Private First Class Giovanni Reno from Houston, Texas. The World War II Women's Summer Service uniform is worn by Private Gita Taylor from Gulf Breeze, Florida. November 10th, 1950, back in Korea. New names are now heard: Tokori, Chosin, Hongnam, but the fighting, courage, and valor of our Marine air-ground team is the spirit spelled out in the words, "Retreat, hell, we're just attacking in another direction." The amphibious doctrine was reaffirmed as the Marines spearheaded a brilliant amphibious flanking attack at Incheon and severed the enemy forces. The Marines slugged it out as part of the United Nations force until the enemy cried quit. The Korean War cold weather uniform is worn by Private Nicholas Rich from New Tripoli, Pennsylvania. November 10th, 1965, Dominican Republic and Vietnam. A new breed of Marines wrote pages in the history of our Corps. They fought to protect the lives of American civilians caught in the midst of foreign internal strife. Their mission was to preserve the freedom of a tiny country threatened by communist aggression. Santo Domingo and battles such as Quezon and Hue City highlighted the conflicts. The corporals, lance corporals, privates demonstrated the leadership, the courage, and the esprit which has characterized our Corps. While the victories were less tangible, the outcome more cloudy, the performance of the new breed was steadfast and true. The Vietnam Jungle Utility uniform is worn by Private Donald Morton from Frederick, Maryland. November 10th, 1983, Beirut, Lebanon. 84, the Marines again found themselves ashore in Lebanon. This time, Marines in Beirut drew fire as part of a four-nation peacekeeping force. One of the rotational Marine battalions fell victim to a terrorist attack, in which a fourth of its Navy and Marine personnel were killed. Emerging undaunted from the rubble, the survivors and the relief battalion continued their presence mission until withdrawn 6 months later. Almost immediately after the Beirut bombing, other Marines played a successful role in a U.S. coup de main on the Caribbean island of Grenada, ousting the Cubans and radicals in control there. Marines exploited light resistance to dash across the island and relieve pressure on bogged-down paratroopers and rangers in a model 96-hour intervention. In 1990, Marines participated in Operation Just Cause in Panama to restore order and democracy to the Panamanian people. That same year, Marine forces deployed to Saudi Arabia after Iraqi forces invaded Kuwait. These forces proved their worth during Operation Desert Storm, when they sliced through Iraqi defenses and liberated Kuwait. Camp Lejeune, Camp Hamilton, Okinawa, Guantanamo Bay, the Far East, Liberia, Somalia, Haiti, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Djibouti, and Iraq. Our Marine Air-Ground Logistics team has retained a few good men and women with dedication and devotion. Let us reflect on those Marines who upheld the honor of our great nation. Remember also the parents, spouses, and children of the deployed Marines who with much sacrifice and fortitude provide the necessary love and support to make up our Marine Corps family. For 239 years, the Marines of our Corps have always been true to their faith, our nation, and our motto, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. The Beirut, Lebanon utility uniform is worn by Private Juan Rodriguez from Victorville, California. The Desert Storm uniform is worn by Private First Class Nicholas Meyer from Alexandria, Kentucky. The Marine Aviator uniform is worn by Private Arthur Kearney from Morton, Texas. And the Marpat Digital Utility uniform is worn by Private Taylor Johnson from Excelsior Springs, Missouri. The Civil War. War. The Banana Wars. The Dominican Republic and Vietnam. The Mayaguez Rescue, Lebanon, Grenada, Iraq. Ladies and gentlemen, now taking their position are Colonel Yuri R. Escalante, Corps Base Camp Lejeune. They are accompanied with today's oldest and youngest Marines present. Ladies and gentlemen,
detail, color guards, historical pageant marines, and honor escorts. Hooray! Rest!
ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. On November 1st, 1921, John A. Lejeune, 13th Commandant of the Marine Corps, directed that a reminder of the honorable service of the Corps be published by every command to all Marines throughout the globe on the birthday of the Corps. Since that day, Marines have continued to distinguish themselves on many battlefields and foreign shores, in war and peace. On this 239th birthday of the Corps, in compliance with the will of the 13th Commandant, Article 38, United States Marine Corps Manual, edition of 1921, is republished as follows. On November 10, 1775, a Corps of Marines was created by a resolution of the Continental Congress. Since that date, many thousand men have borne the name Marine. In memory of them, it is fitting that we who are Marines should commemorate the birthday of our Corps by calling to mind the glories of its long and illustrious history. The record of our Corps is one which will bear comparison with that of the most famous military organizations in the world's history. During 90 of the 147 years of its existence, the Marine Corps has been in action against the nation's foes. From the Battle of Trenton to the Argonne, Marines have won foremost honors in war, and in the long era of tranquility at home, generation after generation of Marines have grown gray in war in both hemispheres, and in every corner of the seven seas that our country and its citizens might enjoy peace and security. In every battle and skirmish since the birth of our Corps, Marines have acquitted themselves with the greatest distinction, winning new honors on each occasion, until the term Marine has come to signify all that is highest in military efficiency and soldierly virtue. This high name of distinction and soldierly repute, we who are Marines today have received from those who preceded us in the Corps. With it, we also receive from them the essential spirit which has animated our Corps from generation to generation and has been the distinguishing mark of the Marine in every age. So long as that spirit continues to flourish, Marines will be equal to every emergency in the future as they have been in the past, and the men of our nation will regard us as worthy successors to the long line of illustrious men who have served as soldiers of the sea since the founding of our Corps. This inspiring message of the 13th Commandant has left its mark in the hearts and minds of all Marines. By deed and act from Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima, from Incheon to the Korean Armistice, in interventions from Lebanon to the Dominican Republic, and from the opening battles in Vietnam to the Mayaguez rescue, Marines have continued to epitomize those qualities which are their legacy. The success which they have achieved in combat and the faith they have borne in peace will continue. The Commandant and our many friends have added their hearty praise and congratulations on this, our 239th birthday. A message from the Commandant of the Marine Corps. In his birthday greeting 70 years ago, General Alexander Vandegrift, our 18th Commandant, noted that a birthday is a fitting time to peer backward and forward. That year, Marines reflected on an extraordinary year in combat during their amphibious drive across the Pacific. Despite the challenges and the horrific conditions, Marines prevailed at Guam, Saipan, and Peleliu. On 10 November 1944, Marines looked back with pride on their accomplishments, confident in their ability to meet future challenges. In 2004, 20,000 Marines deployed to Al Anbar Province, Iraq. Many Marines celebrated the birthday in places like Fallujah, Ramadi, and Al-Qaim, while decisively engaged in combat. That year, Marines also responded to crisis in the Pacific following a tsunami which claimed the lives of more than 200,000 people. On 10 November 2004, Marines looked back with pride on their accomplishments, confident in their ability to meet future challenges. As we celebrate our 239th birthday, Marines are in combat in Afghanistan. Since we last gathered to celebrate our Corps' birthday, we also responded to crisis in the Philippines, South Sudan, Libya, and Iraq. Some things change. This year found us in different climes and places than our predecessors in 1944 and 2004. We have adapted our organization, training, and equipment to the ever-changing operating environment. Some things remain the same. Marines attacked this year's challenges with the same courage, commitment, loyalty, self-sacrifice, and adaptability as their predecessors in Peleliu and Fallujah. For that reason, on 10 November 2014, we Marines can look back with pride on our accomplishments, confident in our ability to meet future challenges. Thanks for who you are and what you do. Happy birthday, Marines. Semper Fidelis. Signed, J.F. Dunford Jr., General, U.S. Marine Corps, Commandant of the Marine Corps. It is a tradition in the United States Marine Corps that the first piece of cake be presented to the oldest and youngest Marines on active duty. Colonel Yuri R. Escalante, Deputy Commander of Marine Corps Installations East, Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune, will cut the cake. Colonel Escalante will present the cake to the oldest active duty Marine present, Colonel Brian T. Palmer. Colonel Palmer is from Indianapolis, Indiana, and is currently serving as the officer in charge of the Legal Services Support Section East. He has served 27 years, 10 months in our beloved Corps. Colonel Palmer was born on November 28, 1960. Colonel Palmer will now present a piece of cake to the youngest Marine present, Private First Class Angelina H. Mansica. PFC Mansica is from Great Falls, Montana, and is currently assigned to Motor Transport Platoon, Headquarters and Support Battalion, School of Infantry East. She enlisted in the Marine Corps on 27 January 2014. PFC Mansica was born on 11 February 1996. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the retiring of the colors and remain. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes this morning's ceremony. Thank you for joining us today to commemorate the 239th birthday of the United States Marine Corps and to honor the achievements and remember the selfless sacrifice and service of all Marines and sailors. The historical pageant Marines and the birthday cake will remain on the field for photos.